Hi guys, my name is Daryl, and today I want to talk about a concept that Vince taught me, and it's the growth hormone release system. It's a really great system. It's something that Larry Scott really believed in as well, and a lot of his programs were based on this principle. And the premise behind the system is to release growth hormone naturally from your anterior pituitary gland. Growth hormone is important because that's the anabolic hormone that opens up the cells of the muscle to allow protein synthesis to occur. Also helps with driving testosterone into the body and using testosterone to open up the receptors of the cells to get that anabolic effect. And so it's a very important hormone. That's why when guys do a lot of anabolics, they'll increase their growth hormone as well as their testosterone levels. And so that just allows for the anabolic process to last a lot longer than the natural bodybuilders. Because it's synthetic, you're injecting it into your body, and therefore it just stays in your system for a lot longer, turns on all those receptors and keep those receptors on, so you get a very high level of protein synthesis occurring, as well as those receptors sites stay open for a lot longer. When you're a natural bodybuilder, there's a very short window of opportunity to capitalize on the anabolic processes of the body, and those muscle cell receptors will turn off very quickly, usually within about 2 hours after you work out. So that's why it's crucial for natural bodybuilders to understand how the system works, so that we can take advantage of our natural processing of growth hormone and testosterone, so you can maximize your efforts without overtraining or depleting the body so much that you go into a catabolic effect where you're actually muscle wasting. So growth hormone doesn't last long in your system when you're working out, especially if you're for natural bodybuilders. So there's a short window of opportunity to capitalize on the growth hormone phenomenon. You have about 30 to 40 minutes to really capitalize on the growth hormone levels before you release too much cortisol. So when your cortisol level gets too high, that's going to turn off those receptor sites of the cell. It's going to protect the muscle cells, because that's what cortisol does. It's a stress hormone that shuts off the anabolic processes of the body. And so that's why it's very important not to overtrain. And with Vince's programs, he always emphasized training no longer than 45 minutes. And it's all based on volume versus time. So you're trying to get as much as you can all packed in within about 30 to 40 minutes. Some of the workouts that I did with Vince would only last about 20 minutes. It didn't really matter how long you worked out. Vince would always tell me that it's not about a marathon. You're not running a marathon. Why do you want to train for an hour and a half to 2 hours? It doesn't make any sense. And if you couldn't get a workout in within 20 to 30 minutes, then something's wrong. You're not following the program right. And a lot of guys that do Vince's stuff, they don't know what they're doing, and so they'll contact me and say, wow, I'm done in 10 minutes and didn't do anything. Well, they didn't do it right. Once you start to understand how Vince's programs work, then you can start to really get into the exercises and into the routine, because it's all about how the muscle is working. It's a feel. You're feeling the muscle work, and you're contracting. So you're trying to get as much as you possibly can out of that muscle, out of that rep. And so what you're doing is you're maximizing full effort to that muscle. Vince would always say, think of each rep as your last rep. That you really want to just give it everything you got, and then each set would be your last set. And so you're always thinking about ways to make it more challenging. And the premise behind the growth hormone system is that Vince kind of came up with this idea, whether it was his idea or if he learned it from somebody else or whatever. But the idea of how the body works when you weight train, when we exercise, there's different levels of stress. So with those levels of stress, you're going to release certain amounts of growth hormone. And so the idea of this system is that when you are doing the 10-8-6-15 system, you're doing a warm-up set. So the moment you get to the gym and you load up the bar and you start to do a warm-up set. So that's the first level of stress that your body's going to go through. So the endocrine system lights up, and then the pituitary gland secretes growth hormone. And so then that process starts to kick into gear. Your adrenal glands start to activate. A little bit more epinephrine starts to get pumped out. And so you're getting your body a little more warmed up. It's starting to get into that sympathetic system. And then your second set, you're going to go 8 reps. It's a little bit higher intensity, so you're going to increase the resistance. And by increasing the resistance, you're going to another level of intensity, that's more of like a work set. That's going to be like another challenge to the body, and therefore another secretion of growth hormone from the anterior pituitary gland is going to occur. And so then you go through that set. And then you go for your third set, and this is what they call the fear set. This is bringing your resistance all the way up to almost as high as you can, to as close to max as possible. So it's like you're lifting weight that's kind of over your head, in terms of, you're not almost at 100%, and the way you figure out your 100% would be, you would take whatever you could lift for 6 reps. That's what your 100% would be. So that's the amount of weight that you would use, and it's that struggle that you're going to go through, because a lot of times when you have that initial fear of lifting something really heavy, there is going to be a little bit more of a adrenaline push. You're going to get a little bit more, your heart rate's going to go up a little bit. You're going to get a little more excited about it, and you're going to try to push yourself through that exercise. And so that's going to create more of a little bit of that fear. And so that's going to, when you're struggling with the weight, say if you're doing a chest press and you're really struggling, to get that weight up, your body's fighting that resistance. So it's really more of a challenge. And so that's when you're going to have your third release of growth hormone. And so then you would rest for about a minute or two, and then you do your what's called the flushing set, and that's a 15 rep set. And that's the flushing set. It's not as light as the warm-up set, but you do drop the weight down, and then you do 15 reps. And it's that burning sensation, that kind of that lactic acid burn that you're getting by getting to that 15th rep. That's another stress to the body, and therefore it's going to create another secretion of growth hormone. And so this is what Vince came up with years ago, and it does work. It's a great system to use, because you only do 4 sets. It's 1 exercise per muscle group. So it's something you don't want to, you don't want to do like a triple compound or tri-set or, supersets on this particular system, because it's just going to be too taxing. So that's what's going to increase your time variable, and it's going to push you beyond 30 to 45 minutes, and you're also going to start to increase your level of cortisol. So the whole idea is that what we're trying to do is trying to hit the muscle, trying to get as much intensity built into those 4 sets that's going to release the growth hormone, and then you go to the next exercise, and you continue on, and you're trying to get everything done between 30 to 45 minutes. Because again, as growth hormone is starting to, it's releasing, but it's also decreasing. And then your cortisol levels are starting to increase. You don't want to get to that point where you overtrain, and then your cortisol levels are just too high, and then that's when you go into muscle wasting, and kind of, you're going to lose your gains. That's when you're not going to really see any results. You want to go into the gym with a purpose, a goal in mind, that you're going to hit the exercises. You have everything laid out. The best way to do it is to set everything up before you do the exercise. So you go and you set everything up into the gym if you can. If it's busy, you do the best you can. But if you have a gym at home, or if you have a gym that you're working out in the morning, no one's there, then you set everything up, and you want to hit everything perfectly. You want to do your warm-up set. Then you go to the heavy set. Then you go to your fear set. Then you go to your flushing set. And then you move right on to the next exercise. The workout's going to be relatively quick. And that's the whole idea, because you want to keep a high concentration of growth hormone in your system and not release so much cortisol. So that's really how it works. That's how Larry Scott used to train, and he had great results from this. I talked to him extensively over the years when he was alive, and every time he would talk about the 10-8-6-15 routine, and he said it was at his age and his training, it was the best system. It was one of his favorites, and on his programs, that was basically what he would have his students do, was the 10-8-6-15 routine. And I love that system as well. It's something that I will incorporate throughout the season, and then as I get closer to a contest, or especially if I want to do like a photo shoot or something, I'll change up into a different system. I'll go into the definition system programs. In the off season, I always change things up quite a bit, and the 10-8-6-15 routine is one that I always use. And so there you have it, guys. That is the 10-8-6-15 system. And again, that's just something you can throw into your toolbox. Next time you go to the gym, if you've just been doing the same sort of set system, Like if you're doing 4 sets of 12 reps or whatever it is, or 5 sets of 5, or 6 by 6, or an 8 by 8, it's nice just to change it up. And now you can do the 10, 8, 6, 15. As natural bodybuilders, we have to kind of figure out ways that we can maximize our own natural hormone production. And this is one way of doing it. And so all these programs are in Convinced and Invincible. And so that's where these books really come in handy, because all you got to do is just follow the system, and they all work. They're great. So if you don't have a copy of Convinced or Invincible, you can go to my website. You can check that out at www.darylconnor.com, or you can go on Amazon. You can buy it off Amazon. You can get the PDF version, or you can get the soft cover version. Each book's over 600 pages, so it's about 1,200 pages of information. I highly recommend both books, but if you can only get one, then you can start with maybe Invincible and then move into Convinced. But Convinced, they're both two different types of books. It was the Master Series and the Pro Series, and that's what the Invincible is all about. The first 2 years of training with Vince, and then the last 3 years I trained with Vince were all the programs that were in Convinced. So it's 5 years of training all together, and it's just so much information. But you can use all these different systems to kind of help develop a great looking body. So there you have it, guys. If you have any questions, you want to learn more about my programs, my online training, I do design customized programs for people, and it's a very reasonable price. It's a monthly program. You have access to me, the nutrition plans, the supplement plans, and the exercises. So if you're interested in that, you can check out my website at www.darylconnor.com. I want to thank you very much for watching. Take care. See you next time.